"That's me, then," Daisy muttered as she rose from her seat and made her way to the middle of the arena. Standing in front of her, Daisy could not feel any sense of relaxation. Elissa's gaze felt like a dragon was looking at her hungrily. "You ready?" Elissa asked in a sweet tone that belied her true nature. Daisy could only weakly nod. "Perfect, begin when you're ready," Elissa declared, not putting up any defensive form. "It is now." Daisy realized Elissa had yet to take an actual combat form against the other class members. She had wailed away at them like a kid with a stick. "Infernus!" Daisy shouted, launching a fire javelin from her wand in Elissa's direction. Elissa easily sidestepped the spell and closed the distance. "Aegis!" Daisy shouted, creating a flash shield just a moment too late. The sheath was already behind the shield by the time it appeared. Bracing herself for the strike, she felt only a gentle tap against her ribs. Looking at Elissa, Daisy could see her give a playful wink. Seizing the opportunity, Daisy threw down her wand and drew her rapier. She began retaking the initiative using the form drilled into her by countless instructors since she was a toddler. For the first time since the lesson began, Elissa was actually on the defensive. What was most noticeable was Elissa's sheath was beginning to crack under the damage Daisy's rapier was doing. "That's a nice sword you got there," Elissa observed as she leaned back, avoiding a thrust from Daisy. "Bit too nice, if anything," Elissa added as she maneuvered to Daisy's left. "However, you shouldn't rely on a powerful sword. You should be the weapon and the blade should rely on your strength," Elissa explained as she blocked a fresh flurry from Daisy. "You are just saying that because I am obviously pushing you back," Daisy declared, hoping to create an opening. That is when Elissa's sheath finally broke, and all defense from Elissa stopped. By then, though, it was too late. Daisy's sword was already heading towards Elissa's heart. Trying her best to stop her thrust, the best she did was divert it to only pierce Elissa's sternum. The blade pierced through Elissa's chest like she wasn't even there. "Oh, gods!" Daisy cried out in terror. She was a good student, and now she had stabbed a princess. "Oh, no! I have been stabbed! Woe with me!" Elissa cried out in a deadpan monotone. Taking a step to the side, Daisy was shocked to see the blade pass through the remainder of Elissa's chest and out the side. "See what I mean now?" Elissa asked, tilting her head. How?" was all Daisy could stammer out. "That is a Hellshep and burning anvil blade, right?" Elissa asked, gesturing to the maker's marks on her own blade that was now free of a ruined sheath. Yes, Daisy replied, unsure of where this was going. "Never use a powerful weapon if you don't know its every feature," Elissa finally said as she closed the distance and delivered a strike to Daisy's solar plexus, driving all the air out her lungs. Collapsing to the ground, Daisy was left gasping for breath. "Ask little you or Alex about it," Elissa added with a pat on Daisy's head before returning to her staring position. Daisy felt cold, metallic hands scoop her up from the ground and carry her over to the stands. Eventually, a warm green light enveloped her body and the pain began to subside. "Why didn't my sword cut her?" Daisy mumbled, looking at the very expensive sword in her hand. "Oh, cool. Haven't seen that in years. Thought that thing on your hip looked familiar," Yu muttered as she bent down and picked up Daisy's wand from the ground with a free hand. "You know this blade?" "Yeah, one of mine and Alex's. I made the blade. He made the enchantments," Yu cheerily answered, something that gave a moment of cognitive dissonance with the deep voice. Gently placing Daisy down next to Maxwell and Gunter, she could only groan. "Why didn't it work?" Daisy asked, wincing in pain. "Gunter, what are the 3 rules of magical engineering?" Yu barked at Gunter, who was helping keep Maxwell propped upright. It's never make anything that can be used against you." Yu nodded in approval. "Then it's never make anything you wouldn't want someone else to use." Yu gave another nod. Then the last one is..." Gunter's voice trailed off as he struggled to remember the third part. Eventually, Yu sighed. "If you must make something you don't want others to use, make it so. No one other than you can use it." Yu answered for him. "That sword follows those rules. You experienced the first. The blade will become incorporeal if used against its 3 patron makers. Me, Alex, and Elissa." "Next!" Elissa barked from the center of the arena. "Guess I'm up." Bea said as she hopped from her seat and headed towards Elissa. The class eagerly watched as the tiny girl approached the elven princess, whom they were becoming increasingly convinced was a monster. Bea stopped a fair few paces away from Elissa and gestured for them to begin. The moment she did, a flash of light surrounded her, and 3 forms rose out of the ground, beings coated in spiked armor with skulls hanging from their belts and flaming swords at their waists. "Oh, cool! She summoned demons," Alex said. "How she hasn't got a summoning ring, nor did she chant?" Kleiny asked. "She has got a summoning ring," Alex replied. "Where is it? Don't tell me she drew it before we arrived." "No, Kleine. Bea has a summoning ring," Alex repeated, emphasizing the word ring. "She has 3 rings of Solomon. The Grand Duke of Hell only ever produced only 72 rings while in the employ of a mage king. Her family, the Blackgates, were one of the ducal houses that served this king, though those look like the weaker demons bound. Looks like Furcus, Buffrom, and maybe Andromalius," Yu added, focusing her gaze on the fight. "So it's 4 versus 1? Daisy shouted, fury in her voice. "Nah, even with them, it won't matter. Watch as Lady Elissa beats those demons so bad when they return to hell, they'll be turned away for suffering too much," Tasha answered. "Tasha, I know you have weird feelings for her, but surely even you aren't that detached from—" A deafening boom cut off Daisy's protests from the arena. Turning to look at the source, there was now a crater and 1 less demon. Daisy could only stare at the common-sense-defying event before her. But demons are immune to physical attacks. You need magic even to hit their forms? "Elissa is a natural," Alex answered. "At what?" "She is so powerful because every cell is enhanced with her mana. At the cost of being unable to project her magic out of her body, she gained that." Alex pointed to the arena, where a demon that looked like a bearded old man with goat horns was being held aloft by his neck. With a quick twitch of her hand, a loud crack heard even by the observing students in the stands behind them echoed out. "And then there were 2, Yu muttered. Not waiting another moment, Elissa stepped forwards in a flash, sliced the head of the demon off, and held her sword to Bea's neck. Retreating as best as she could, Bea clearly looked panicked. She began throwing vials that emitted green clouds of gas, all while throwing daggers, but nothing hit. With little recourse, Bea changed tact and charged Elissa, trying to use her small size to her advantage. With a slide, she went between Elissa's legs and was positioned behind her. Holding her hands together, it was clear Bea was chanting something. After a moment, lighting crackled between her fingertips. "Oh, bad move," Yu muttered. "How so?" Maxwell asked, shuffling himself up a bit more. "Elissa is absurd in so many ways. It's why she fits in with us so much. But her weirdest trait is going to be on show soon." A crack of lightning resounded out. It was so loud that all in the arena had to hold their hands to protect their ears. The moment the flash died down, Elissa was standing there looking nonplussed. If anything, she seemed somewhat annoyed. Her hair was suddenly frizzy. Sir?" Klein turned to Alex, hoping the unasked question would be answered. "It's simple. She lacks the mental capacity to understand she should be hurt by lightning. With her absurd body on top of that, she is effectively immune to all electrical attacks." That makes no sense," Daisy complained. "Believe me, we know. It is our best theory. Kinda like how my sister keeps surviving near suicidal missions is because death decided she was too scary to approach." Looking their teacher in the eyes, the class could see an exhausted expression, as if he had been struggling to understand this mystery and was no closer than the first day he had learned about it. Looking back to the fight, they could see Bea dodging while trying to flash shield, but the shields were staying, which meant she wasn't loading them with enough mana. Eventually, Bea cast her last spell and abruptly collapsed. "Wow, I did not expect her to mana out. Bea must have really given Elissa a fun match," Alex observed as Yu got up to retrieve the unconscious student. "Last student!" Elissa barked, now back in the center of the arena. Tasha practically beamed with joy at being spoken to by Elissa. Skipping into the middle of the arena, the class watched as they both bowed to one another, indicating they were ready. Then Tasha drew her dagger and dropped it to the ground, shortly followed by her bow and quiver. She then held her hands up in a surrender position. Elissa seemed confused by these actions, but then just nodded. Tasha happily picked up her gear and skipped back towards the class. "What happened?" Alex asked the moment she returned. "I forfeited. I could never even try to hurt her magnificence even in a spar session." Alex just exhaled a deep sigh. "Very well, you. Please swap with Elissa. Tasha won't get out of practicing flash shield." "Sure thing." Yu nodded as she rose from her seat. At this prospect, Tasha beamed again, ran back to the middle of the arena, and passed on the situation to Elissa, who nodded and trudged back over to Alex. "I'm sorry, honey. Seems she's too scared of me. She kept tripping over her words when I asked if she was ready, then she forfeited. I will get her to forgive me so I can have hugs," Elissa explained as she went in for a hug, only to be pushed away by Alex. The class now watched on with interest, as they could now watch you fight for the first time. Tasha raised her bow with an arrow that was emitting an iridescent glow. The moment the signal to begin was given, the arrow was already in flight. You visibly staggered backwards as Tasha darted back, keeping up the assault with enchanted arrows. Each chipped away at the armor more and more. "Looks like a repeat of the Gunter fight," Daisy observed. The barrage kept up till the breastplate finally broke off. A few of the class and observers all exhaled gasps of shock at the prospect of seeing the enigmatic Professor Yu. To their surprise, there seated in the chest cavity was a small dwarf girl who looked no older than 14. "Damn it! I was trying to hide how I look!" Yu roared as she went on the offensive. Tasha kept up her retreat but was quickly running out of arrows. Trying to get a clearer shot at Yu, Tasha jumped in the air. "Gotcha!" Yu roared, as this was what she had been waiting for. The moment Tasha was at the peak of her jump's arc, Yu's movements accelerated and caught up with her, catching her by the leg in midair. Never go airborne if you don't have a way to maneuver midair. Otherwise, you become easy prey. Now let me beat some sense into your skull. The class watched in horror as Yu enveloped her gauntlet in healing energy and kept punching Tasha. While no damage was being done, the pain was very much being felt. As the giant fist was about to descend again, a flash shield appeared and repelled it. Then another and another. As quick as Yu could punch, Tasha was blocking with a flash shield. "Sir," Daisy's tone was pleading. "Yo, that's enough!" Alex barked, rising from his seat and approaching his friend. "But everyone knows what I look like now," Yu protested. "They always knew you. They respect you enough to go along with your wishes." Alex answered, "Now release my student!" The entire arena began to fill with an overwhelming bloodlust that put even Elissa's entrance to shame. With a resigned sigh, Yu looked at Tasha, who was still hanging upside down. "Fine," Yu muttered as she released Tasha, making sure to drop her on her head. With the conflict somewhat resolved, Alex, Yu, and Tasha all returned to the stands. "So, class, how'd you enjoy your lesson?" Alex asked. "It was enlightening and terrifying," B answered, "but you seem A-OK now." "Yes, I'm all operational now," Alex replied with a nod. "Good, then we can see a sparring match between you and Elissa like you promised." Alex near choked as he realized he had fallen into B's trap. With a smirk admitting defeat, he just nodded. "Very well, watch me and my soulmate fight."